Welcome into another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Max Chadwick alongside Dalton Wasserman here with my top 50 players in college football entering the 2025 season, the PFF College 50. Dalton, we've already broke down every single one of the top 10 positions in college football, broke down the top 10 units in college football as well. Now we're giving out the top 50 overall players regardless of position.
Yeah, this is honestly one of my favorite episodes of the year because the number of arguments that this is going to start is going to be endless, whether it's positioning within the rankings or guys who got left off and should have been on here. And trust me, the last handful of guys we really had a lot of debates about. There's probably 10 or 15 guys that we considered for these last few spots, but it's going to be so much fun to just put this list out and see who wants to argue about it and who wants to have some fun with these rankings, and then looking back at the end of the year and seeing where it really winds up.
Absolutely. So just to kind of remind you guys right now, the PFF College 50 is being unveiled also right now on the website, pff.com. 50 through 11 is currently available on the website. The top 10 will be revealed here live on this show. I'll give you a sneak peek of the top 10 before it gets released in written form tomorrow on pff.com. If you want to follow along, though, the 50 through 11, like I said, is available at pff.com right now, as well as a PFF Plus subscription that helped Dalton and I make this PFF College 50. All those stats are available to you guys with that subscription at subscribe.pff.com. And you can use our mock draft simulator and the best fantasy tools on the planet as you begin to prepare for your fantasy football drafts. Dalton, let's get started with the top 50 players in college football going in reverse order. At number 50 is Arch Manning, the quarterback from Texas. Number 49, Terry Moore, the safety out of Duke. Number 48, edge defender Denai Dennis Sutton from Penn State. Number 47, Bray Hubbard, the safety from Alabama. Number 46, Malik Muhammad, the corner from Texas. Number 45, linebacker Austin Romaine from Kansas State. Number 44, another linebacker in Whit Weeks from LSU. Number 43, Caden Proctor, the left tackle for Alabama. Number 42, safety KJ Bolden, the rising true sophomore at Georgia. And at number 41, offensive tackle Francis Mauigoa from Miami. Where do you want to start, Dawn? I feel like number 50 might be the most controversial one. Some people might say, hey, should be a lot higher. Honestly, he's a Heisman Trophy favorite right now. Some people might say, hey, he's only started 2 games in his entire college career. How is he a top 50 player already? Why do we think Arch Manning is deserving to be on this list?
You're going to make me do it, huh?
Yeah,
You're going to make me do the lightning rod one right off rip. Well, look, this felt like kind of a good hedge for us to not put him, because look, right now he's the favorite in the Heisman odds right now. He's what is he, +6 or +700 to win the Heisman, and considering Steve Sarkisian and that offense and everything that Texas has as far as the tools and even their defense to win a lot of football games in the SEC, Arch Manning did not look out of place by any means last year. I know it's a small sample, but 88 PFF grade last season in really his first extended action. Made a couple of starts, got in a couple other games, kind of the Wildcat compliment to Quinn Ewers. But look, I keep saying this over and over. I know there's all sorts of speculation, numbers, sample size. He hasn't been an extended starter yet. He's a Manning.
Yeah.
And he's a Manning that can run, which just sounds ridiculous to me when we consider the legendary family that is at quarterback. But I think this feels like a good place to start with him, right? I believe you had him as QB 6.
Yeah.
6 in your rankings. Okay, so the lack of a track record, that makes a lot of sense. There's other guys with track records, Cade Klubnik, Sam Levitt, some other guys, right? Drew Aller, who've had already one or at least multiple college seasons under their belt. Manning now has a chance to take college football by storm. If he does that, he could be the number 1 or top 3 player on this list by the end of the year. If he struggles in his first year as an extended starter now, then you're talking about, okay, we reel it back, we reset it for 2027, we evaluate. But really, he's number 50 on this list. He's arguably the biggest story in all of college football this year, right? And it's just a matter of his development and how quickly he gets acclimated to starting every single week for Steve Sarkisian.
He's got so much hype on him already. Dalton just mentioned before, he's the Heisman Trophy favorite right now, +700 on DraftKings Sportsbook. 88.1 PFF grade last year, was 13th among all quarterbacks in America who played at least 200 snaps. So he's a really good player. I think he'll be an excellent player at Texas. I think 50 will be far too low considering how good I think he will be in 2025, but I feel like 50 is reasonable. You want to have him in the top 50, but right on the edge of top 50 saying, hey, listen, why don't you prove us some more, then you'd be a little higher on this list. As for the rest of 50, through 41. I think you start to look at some of the linebackers there, Dalton. Whit Weeks and Austin Romaine, two guys I'm a big fan of. Austin Romaine, especially, I think is a PFF darling right now. Romaine was the highest graded linebacker in the Power 4 last year, is arguably the best run-defending linebacker in the Power 4. Then Whit Weeks is kind of the guy that really came out of nowhere in that LSU linebacker unit. Everyone thought Harold Perkins Jr. would be the superstar, and we thought he was the best linebacker in the country entering the year. Whit Weeks, as a true sophomore, was actually the star of that unit, especially with Perkins going down with a torn ACL. He was really, really good last year. 21 tackles for loss or no gain, the fourth most among all linebackers in the country. So two of the best linebackers in America. We still have a couple more coming later on in this list, but those two deserve a place in the top 50.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Weeks is a great mention, especially as kind of the one constant last year on this LSU defense, and it feels like LSU's defense is one of the biggest X factors in the SEC race, right? You have Weeks, but then you have Perkins returning from injury. You got a boatload of transfers like Patrick Payton and Mansour Delane and A.J. Halsey coming in there, all good players in the past, but they have to gel it together and they have to get this defense right, especially the back seven. To me, this secondary is really what's cost LSU a chance to compete for an SEC championship and a national championship the last couple years. They fixed this defense with what they have in Garrett Nussmeier in the offense. You talk about a legitimate SEC contender, but it's one of the biggest X factors in the entire SEC, LSU's defense, and Weeks is the captain of it.
Absolutely. They need a much better defensive performance next year, considering that's what held them back the last couple years. They still have a lot of offensive talent with Garrett Nussmeier, but a little more questions on offense with the brand new offensive line there too. They need that defense to step up next year. I think their linebacker unit is one of the best in the country with Whit Weeks and Harold Perkins come back for another year. But that wraps up 50 through 41. Let's go to 40 through 31 now. At number 40 is defensive tackle Tim Keenan III from Alabama. At number 39, another D tackle in Zane Durant from Penn State. Number 38, Elijah Surratt, the wide receiver from Indiana. Number 37, Mekhi Hughes, the running back transferring to Oregon from Tulane. Number 36, Mikhail Kamara, the edge rusher from Indiana. Number 35, edge rusher Tyreek Sapp from Florida. Number 34, edge rusher LT Overton from Alabama. 33, Chandler Rivers from Duke. 32, Jonah Coleman from Washington. And 31, Nick Singleton from Penn State. I think some people might see that list right there and say, wait, did you get lazy and just put a lot of guys at the same position in just order like that? I wanted to do it that way. I think we wanted to do it that way to say, hey, these guys are so close together. That's why they're right next to each other in the PFF College 50.
That's a lot of nitty-gritty in that group, isn't there? Especially the defensive linemen. And honestly, the one that I want to – actually, I should say two that I want to talk about from the same unit. You know I'm a huge believer in Alabama's defense this year, and it starts up front with LT Overton and with Tim Keenan. Overton's the best pass rusher on the team. I think they need to find one more just to complete that unit, but you talk about those two, Overton and Keenan, in run defense especially. This Alabama run defense could be elite. The entire Alabama defense could be elite this year at all three levels. You look at what they have on the D-line with these two guys, with Deontay Lawson and those guys at linebacker, and they have a boatload of talent in the secondary. Alabama's going to be one of the best defenses in the country this year. I know a lot of people are a little worried about them after a 9-4 performance in Kalen DeBoer's first year as their head coach, but I think their defense is the foundation. That's what they're going to lean on while they figure out the quarterback situation, even the running back situation a little bit, but their defense is going to keep them in every game they play, and I think they could be an elite team because of it. It starts up front with Overton and Keenan on the D-line.
Alabama is the only school in America that had a top 10 player for me at every single defensive position, whether it be D tackle, edge rusher, linebacker, corner, safety, a top 10 player at all of those positions. So Alabama's defense, yes, absolutely could be the best in the country next year. The final two players there in 32 and 31 are two running backs, and Nick Singleton from Penn State and Jonah Coleman from Washington, both in the Big Ten. I think Singleton's a really good player. I was really surprised when he decided to return for Penn State for his senior year. He has over 1,100 yards last year, only behind Jeremiyah Love and Isaac Brown among returning Power 4 running backs. 6.4 yards per carry, we're 8th in the Power 4 too. He's a lightning in Penn State's backfield alongside Katron Allen's really the thunder in that backfield. Katron Allen just missed being in the top 50 of this list. And then Jonah Coleman, speaking of thunder, man, he is a bruising running back for the Washington Huskies. 95.4 career PFF rushing grade across his time at Arizona and at Washington, tying for 5th among all running backs in the country in that span. And in fact, no other running back returning next year is in the top 15 of that grade over the last 3 years. So Jonah Coleman has been an outstanding running back throughout his entire career at Arizona and now Washington. And he is, I think, still getting a little underrated right now.
Agreed. Those two are both really good. And there's a third Big Ten running back you just mentioned at 37 before, also in Mekhi Hughes, right? I mean, I think you're looking at the group of running backs we have right now in the Big Ten. There's going to be a lot of teams that want to run the football, a lot of teams with young quarterbacks too, not Penn State necessarily, but you look at Oregon and you look at Washington out west and you go, they've got really young quarterbacks who are going to be in their first full season starting. Obviously, Moore had a handful of games at UCLA a couple of years ago. Damon Williams started to come on for Washington, but those two teams are going to want to run the football with Coleman and Hughes, and obviously Penn State's got a great duo of them, arguably the best duo of backs in the nation with Singleton and with Katron Allen. So that's going to be a theme, as it usually is in the Big Ten. Who are the most physical teams? Who's got balance? Who can run the football and play smash mouth style of football?
Absolutely. All right, let's get to 30 through 21 now here on the PFF College 50. At number 30 is Keldrick Falk, the edge rusher from Auburn, who a lot of people think could be a top 10, top 15 pick in next year's draft. Torian York, the linebacker at number 29 from Texas A&M. Number 28, rising true sophomore Isaac Brown from Louisville. 27, cornerback Avion Terrell from Clemson. Number 26, safety Michael Taft from Texas. Number 25, another safety in Dylan Thieneman from Oregon. Number 24, cornerback D'Angelo Pons from Indiana. And number 23, Garrett Nussmeier, the quarterback from LSU. Number 22, another quarterback in Drew Aller from Penn State. And number 21, another quarterback in Carson Beck from Miami. Dalton, what do you want to start there from 30 to 21?
It feels like we have to start with those three guys at the top with the three quarterbacks, right? And they're so tightly packed in the order, and I know people are going to debate now what order they should be in and NFL prospects. Well, first of all, this is for the college football season. This is not for the NFL draft, right? And when you look at all three of these guys, I think they have similar profiles, right? They're all very good when they're hot, and they all have some sort of flaw that holds them back a little bit, right? Beck with a lack of mobility. Aller's accuracy is still in question sometimes, and Penn State's working on the receiving core, and Nussmeier's definitely a gunslinger. We know that, right? He's going to put the ball into tight windows, whether it's a proper time to do it or not, but all three of them are very good, right? These are three of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the country. They all have their strengths. They're all playing on good teams, and they're all probably for an extended stretch this year going to be in the playoff race or potentially in the college football playoff. I think especially we have high expectations for your Penn State Nittany Lions and Drew Aller. We already mentioned their 2 running backs. There's several players in this list, and they've got a loaded team, but I think you look at these three. As far as the draft, wait and see, evaluate it during the season, but what they've all done the last couple of years, especially, look, Carson Beck, we got to remember, I know he struggled last year. Supporting cast wasn't great at Georgia. The year before, he had, the third best passing grade in the country, I think, or top 5 passing grade in the country. Carson Beck is good. You just have to protect him. You've mentioned, you've kind of called out the comp to Jared Goff. If you don't protect him, you're going to have an issue with the lack of mobility. But all three of these guys are fantastic, and they should all have good seasons again this year.
I want to talk about Beck a little bit more because when we put out the graphic for this portion of the list on the Twitter, if you want to follow at PFF College, Carson Beck got a lot of heat for being that high in the list. And yes, I know his year last year at Georgia wasn't the best. He still had an 80 passing grade, though, I want to point out there at Georgia. It wasn't as bad. The receiving core really let him down last year. I believe they're outside the top 80 in receiving grade. They really missed Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. Over the last 2 years, Carson Beck has a 90.9 PFF grade. That's the second best of any returning quarterback in college football. So he's still a really good quarterback. I understand, yes, he had a lot of turnover plays last year, a lot of interceptions last year, but I really thought that was more due to Georgia letting him down in that receiving core than anything else. Carson Beck is still a really, really good quarterback, and he still deserves a spot here in the top 50. Now, maybe for some people, 21 would be a little bit too high, but in my opinion, he's still a top 5 quarterback at least in college football. I think I had him 3rd in my ranking. Carson Beck is getting a lot of unnecessary hate right now, and Dawn, it kind of feels like last year going into the season, you and I were saying, hey, Drew Aller is not the problem at Penn State. They got some issues at the receiving core. Drew Aller kind of showed last year, hey, he actually is a really good quarterback, and people started coming on our side. That kind of feels the same way this year with Carson Beck. Like, hey, he's still a really good quarterback. Don't forget about him right now.
And he's not facing SEC defenses every week. At some point, I believe Miami plays Clemson at some point this year. But other than that, the defenses and the opposition in the ACC, not quite what it is in the SEC on that side of the ball. So I expect that, again, as long as they protect him, and Miami's got a pretty good offensive line, as long as they protect him, Carson Beck can be really productive for it. Can I just get into one more thing here before we get into the next section, because we're not going to talk about him again? Look, Indiana, I just want to throw this out there. We've had D'Angelo Pons. We've had Michael Kamara. We've had Elijah Surratt, all in the top 40 of these rankings. That was not some Mickey Mouse run they had last year. Kurt Cignetti's got serious talent on this team. Pons is one of the best corners in the country. Surratt's one of the best receivers. Trevor Sikkema has been talking to us a lot about Elijah Surratt lately for the draft. Michael Kamara's really good. Their defense is really good, and if Fernando Mendoza can go in there and execute the offense in a similar manner as Curtis Rourke last year, Indiana's going to be really good again. They're going to be in Big Ten contention again. That was not a fluke last year. I'm expecting them to have another really good season because they have a loaded team, especially defensively.
Yeah, I still have a lot of high hopes for Indiana next year, and also Dolan, a pretty easy schedule. I believe right now is the easiest according to PFF's power rankings, I believe, in the Big Ten next year. So pretty easy schedule for the Indiana Hoosiers next year, and they should be able to make another run in the playoff if they get it all going. Yeah, I believe, I'm checking it right now, it is, where is it? 67th in the country, which is pretty easily the easiest in the Big Ten.
Their out of conference isn't great like it was last year, but these things are scheduled years in advance. I'm curious to see. There is a couple of big games coming. I think they go to Penn State. Is that right?
Yeah, they have Oregon, I believe, too.
I think they have Oregon at home. They go to Penn State, and I believe they go to Illinois as well. Those are three games that are really going to decide their fate. But honestly, I think they could keep up. I'm telling you, as long as they can pass protect, that was the part to me was picking up blitzes in pass protection. But those are the three big games, if I remember right, that I saw in their schedule.
They are at Oregon and at Penn State.
Oh, it's at Oregon, too. And so, is the Illinois game at home? That might be the home game.
Illinois is home. That's a big game, too. They're at Iowa. But other than that, yeah, they're out of conference slate is Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State.
If they were to find a way to go on the road at Oregon or at Penn State and pull off what would likely be an upset by the lines, you're really talking about Indiana as a playoff contender again.
Yeah, they might be able to, if they win two of those three games, which is a tall ask, but if they win two of those three games against Illinois, Penn State, and Oregon, yeah, they should be a playoff team once again. But that wraps up the 30 through 21. Let's go to the top 20 now. At number 20 is safety Coy Parrish from Minnesota, the rising sophomore. Number 19, the best tight end in America, Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt. Number 18, wide receiver Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. 17, quarterback Sam Levitt from Arizona State. Number 16, the best guard in America, Amraj Reed Adams from Texas A&M. Number 15, edge rusher Reuben Bain Jr. from Miami. Number 14, the best linebacker in the country, Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas. Number 13, cornerback Jermon McCoy from Tennessee, who's hopefully going to be recovering from that torn ACL suffered in January. Number 12, wide receiver Ryan Williams from Alabama, the cover star of EA College Football 26. And number 11, the best interior offensive lineman in America, center Jake Slaughter from Florida. Dalton, what do you want to talk about in the 20 through 11 range?
How could we not start with the Arizona State duo and what Kenny Dillingham has going there for the Sun Devils after winning the Big 12, being predicted last year to be dead last in the Big 12, and then turning around and winning it and giving Texas a run for their money in the CFP quarterfinals. I think, you look at the foundation of this team. Yes, Cam Scadaboo is gone, and that's going to be an issue in the run game. They got Kanye Udo to replace him, but you look at Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson now, the way that their chemistry started to click the second half of last year, you start to talk about the explosiveness that Arizona State can have in this offense. And I know some people, and I know you've even brought this up to me, have made the comparison, okay, is this just last year again with Arizona and Noah Fafita and Tedero and McMillan? But I think one thing we overlooked when it came to trying to predict that team was the loss of Jed Fish, the head coach, and some of the guys that transferred to Washington with him. We see the success that Fish is starting to have at Washington. This team keeps the culture together. Kenny Dillingham, Marcus Arroyo as the offensive coordinator, right, that's calling such great plays and setting up this offense for success, despite last year not having maybe as much talent as a lot of teams that they played, especially in the trenches, but they found a way to do it. Sam Levitt became an elite passer last year, a top 5 turnover-worthy play rate in the country, and Jordan Tyson emerging down the stretch in the second half like McMillan did the year before at Arizona. Big development. He may be the best receiver in next year's draft with a huge season at Arizona State coming. So really looking at this offense being a little more balanced, more explosive. They can't lean on a guy like Cam Scadaboo like they did the last couple of years, but Kenny Dillingham's got the culture working. They have enough talent to win the Big 12 again.
Absolutely, yeah. Scadaboo is going to be a huge loss for that team, but they have one of the best coaches in the Big 12 in Kenny Dillingham, the best quarterback in the Big 12 in Sam Levitt, and the best wide receiver in the Big 12 in Jordan Tyson, in addition to some other really nice players too. Xavier Alford, the safety at Arizona State, is a really good player too. yeah, Arizona State should absolutely be in the thick of it for the Big 12 race next year. I want to talk about Ryan Williams here at number 12. Some people might think it's a little bit low for Ryan Williams. They probably think he's a top 5 player in the country. He's here at number 12. It wasn't as good of a year as, say, Jeremiah Smith, who we'll get to later on this list, of course. But Ryan Williams had a great freshman year, 865 receiving yards, second among all true freshmen over the last 3 years, only behind Jeremiah Smith. Really elite speed, elite body control. There's some games, though, Dalton, last year where he kind of disappeared. Last year, there's a few games like the Georgia one, obviously, where he went off and had like 170 receiving yards. But I think some of the games where he disappeared is why he's outside the top 10. Now, I will say a lot of that probably has to do with Jalen Morrell being a little inaccurate with the football. So maybe with Ty Simpson now as a quarterback, he'll be a little bit better next year. But I think Ryan Williams deserves to be in the top 15, absolutely. But why he's outside the top 10 right now is because he's not as dominant as the 10 players talk about in just a second.
And look, he's an elite talent. We know he is. We saw enough.
He was 17 years old.
We saw enough as a 17-year-old true freshman to know, okay, this guy is an elite talent. And you look at his numbers, and then I look at the way he plays, and with the speed, with the body control, with the after the catch ability. I'm telling you, I see a lot of CeeDee Lamb in him. And Lamb really exploded in his second year at Oklahoma. Now you're talking about a guy in his second year at Alabama, going to get bigger and stronger, going to get even better with his route running, right? And maybe, look, what you lose in Milroe with the rushing ability, you might gain with Simpson with accuracy and timing in this offense, and that's what Kalen DeBoer wants. But make no mistake, Ryan Williams is going to be the foundation of this offense, and the threat of him out there every single snap as the home run hitter, that's what's going to set up everything else for the Crimson Tide.
Absolutely. And Ryan Williams, the cover athlete of the new video game coming out very, very soon, yeah, absolutely still a superstar. He's the number 2 receiver on this list, too. All right, Dalton, that kind of wraps up all the players that people already know if they read the article on PFF.com for 50 through 11 of our top 50 players in college football. Now we're going to reveal the top 10 for the first time ever here live on this show. And at number 10 is edge rusher TJ Parker from Clemson, who we think is going to be the top edge rusher in the upcoming draft. And between him and Peter Woodstone, Clemson has the best defensive line in college football.
Absolutely. I mean, Parker's just such a strong, violent pass rusher, and he's really the foundation of Clemson's pass rush and what allows them to not have to blitz too often, right? With a great secondary, with a great linebacker unit behind him. But this defensive line, what a problem it's going to be. And on passing downs especially, this is the guy you have to worry about because he's strong enough to take on any lineman, to go through any lineman, and if he gets a free shot on your quarterback, you have a serious problem because Parker's a violent football player who really broke out down the stretch last year. I'm with you. He's one of the best pass rushers in the country without question, and him leading this unit, a stacked unit at that, we're going to get to the other guy you just mentioned in a second. I just think there's so much potential for this Clemson defense to do anything that they want to do, and it's the biggest reason to me they're the clear favorite in the ACC.
Yeah, TJ Parker, I think, is probably the strongest edge rusher that we have in college football right now. He had 12 sacks last year, the most among all returning Power 4 edge rushers. He's one of 3 returning Power 4 edge rushers who had 80-plus grades as both a pass rusher and as a run defender. 6'3", 265 pounds. He could be a top 5 pick, I think, in next April's NFL draft. I broke down this play already, I think, in his own video when we did the top 10 edge rushers. But the one play I love of his is the one against Virginia Tech, where the tackle had a vice grip on his shoulder pad, and he took the tackle's own hand off his shoulder pad, hit the tackle in his face with his own hand, sidestepped the tackle, forced a fumble, got a strip sack. And that's just the kind of raw power TJ Parker has. I think he's right now the top edge rusher in the draft and should be a top 5, top 10 pick.
And think about doing that full speed. You're not talking about a swipe or a chop or anything like that. You're talking about a straight vice grip grab and just going, get off me. I'm getting a sack.
Yeah.
Like it's a ridiculous type of talent. We won't be shocked at all if he's a top 10 pick in next year's draft. 51 pressures, 12 sacks last year, and now another year to get better with an even more experienced Clemson unit. We've talked about it a lot already through the spring and the summer so far, but this Clemson defense, if it stays healthy, it's ridiculous. It might be the best defense in the country.
Yeah.
Parker's a huge reason for that. And you just look at him across the board. We're going to talk about another guy, but they can rush the passer. They can stop the run. They can cover. They've got linebackers. They've got corners. Safety, there's a little bit of youth there without R.J. Mickens. We've questioned that just a little bit. If that's what we're nitpicking, is a little bit of youth at safety. And it's not like those guys haven't played before. They played a decent amount last year. It's just that Mickens was kind of the leader and the glue, but they're ridiculously stacked. And Parker, as that main threat that quarterbacks really have to worry about, is such a huge piece of that.
I hope you guys noticed that we kept referring to TJ Parker as the top edge rusher in the NFL draft, not the top edge rusher in college football. But that's because the next two players on this list are not eligible for the 2026 NFL draft. At number 9 is edge rusher Dylan Stewart from South Carolina. And Dalton, there are a lot of Gamecock fans out there right now who see the kind of freaky pass rusher that Dylan Stewart is, and they get memories of Jadeveon Clowney back when he was launching helmets over a decade ago at South Carolina. In my opinion right now, I think Dylan Stewart is the best pass rusher in America.
I think you could easily argue it, especially you talk about that classic 4-3 defensive end. Think about it. As a true freshman last year, playing every week in the SEC, right? 6th best true pass rush grade in the country. That's just ridiculous. I mean, you talk about the resurgence of this South Carolina program, and all the talk right now is for next year's draft and Lenora Sellers and the offense, but it was really because of this defense and Dylan Stewart being such a huge part of that on a team that was stacked with pass rushers, right? TJ Sanders, Kyle Kennard, Brian Thomas Jr. is back for another year, Tonka Hemingway, and yet Dylan Stewart was clearly the most talented guy among all of them as a true freshman. I mean, he comes out that first game against Old Dominion. What was it, 3 sacks and 2 strip sacks or something like that. I mean,
hitting ghost moves like Von Miller out there. I mean, in his first ever game.
A ridiculous amount of, and you mentioned it. I mean, that's all you can really harken back to in this program with Stewart is, it's Jadeveon Clowney. Yeah. It might even be better. I mean, he's got to get a little more muscle in his legs to defend the run a little bit better, but that'll get there. I'm not worried about that at all. As a pure 3-point stance pass rusher, there isn't really anybody better in the country right now. And we're saying that for a guy, again, in this what's going to be probably a legendary 2027 draft class coming up to his true sophomore year. They lost a lot on defense at South Carolina, but the reason they're still going to be good, the number one reason, is Dylan Stewart and his ability to rush the passer at a crazy level. He's one of these guys, these 3 edge rushers that we're talking about in this top 10, you leave them one-on-one, you're asking for it. And Dylan Stewart, even as young as he is no exception to that. He's just spectacular, a game-changing type of defensive end.
Absolutely. A 5-star recruit coming out of high school, 91.4 pass rush grade last year, tied for 6th among all edge rushers in America. 51 pressures last year, were 2nd among returning Power 4 edge rushers. Like Dalton said, got to get a little stronger in the run game, but other than that, man, he is a freaky athlete. I would argue the freakiest athlete that we have at edge rusher in college football right now, and I think he's already the most fearsome pass rusher in college football right now, thanks to his physical gifts. So Dylan Stewart really has number 1 overall pick type of upside. The problem for Dylan Stewart is he's going to be in a draft with a lot of other legendary players in that 2027 class. He might not be a number 1 overall pick, even though he has the talent of being a number 1 overall pick. But Dylan Stewart checks in here at number 9 on our list. Still not the best edge rusher in college football, though, because at number 8 is Colin Simmons from Texas, who's also a rising true sophomore. Dalton, maybe not as physically gifted as Dylan Stewart, but the technique that this guy had in his true freshman year, and he's still a crazy athlete too, I think he's already the best edge rusher in the country.
The hand usage, the arsenal, the bend, the get off, the everything you want to talk about with Colin Simmons. And look, it will be endlessly debated until they're drafted, after they're drafted in the NFL, which of these two guys is better. But there's no denying what Colin Simmons did in his freshman year also, right? And look, we first saw him when we went up to Ann Arbor to watch Texas play Michigan, and he was just dominant. You talk a 90.6 pass rush grade in his second college game in the Big House as Texas dominated Michigan, and then it just never stopped from there. And he didn't even really get to play the full starter's complement of snaps with as loaded as Texas defensive line is. Now he's the top dog, right? And you're talking about, again, arguably the best pass rusher in the country. Yep. A solid run defender who's very well built, and you mentioned his technique is fantastic. I mean, look, Texas has so much, Pete Kwiatkowski has so much to work with on this defense, but at the end of the day, if you've got a freak pass rusher like this off the edge, you can do whatever you want behind it because you know he's going to win those battles. I'll say the same thing with him as I did with Dylan Stewart. You leave him one-on-one, even in the SEC with those offensive linemen, you have a serious problem because he's going to beat you around the corner. He's going to find a way to beat you back inside with the arsenal. Colin Simmons is an absolute freak, and the fact that the two best edge players in the country are coming in as just true sophomores this year, just ridiculous levels of talent from both of these guys. And Simmons, Texas just has to feel really good about having him.
You better, yeah, because he's an unreal player. He actually he had 22 and a half sacks in his junior year of high school, playing at Duncanville High School, which is a really, really talented high school. Actually, he produced Keelan Russell, who was a top 3 recruit overall in the country, the quarterback going to Alabama next year as a true freshman, and Leonard Moore, who was a top receiver in last year's high school class going to Oregon. Colin Simmons is also on that team a couple years ago. Was a dominant player at that level, at the highest level of football in Texas high school football. 5-star recruit, obviously coming out of high school, and he lived up to it immediately in his first year at Texas. Was the 6th most valuable edge rusher in the country, according to our wins above average metric. The only 5 above him were Abdul Carter, Jack Sawyer, Mike Green, Josiah Stewart, and JT Tuimoloau. All of those guys are now in the NFL. So Colin Simmons, in his first year of college football, was basically almost as valuable as those 5 guys right there, and all 5 of them are now moving on to the NFL. Colin Simmons also ended up winning the Shaun Alexander Freshman of the Year award over Jeremiyah Smith. Now, of course, Dalton and I would probably disagree with giving him that award over Jeremiyah, but that's how special Colin Simmons was, that Jeremiyah Smith, who had arguably the greatest freshman year we've ever seen for almost any player ever in college football, and yet Colin Simmons still won that award over him because he was that good as a freshman too. 18.6% pressure rate, top 15 mark in the country. Like Dalton said, a 73.4 run defense grade too. Really, really solid mark, and why he was barely above Dylan Stewart here in this ranking, but an elite combination of bend, advanced pass rushing moves. Dalton, he's already garnered comparisons to Von Miller. And that's a legendary player. You kind of see it when you watch Colin Simmons.
You sure can. I mean, that's what you're getting at is the advanced level of tools and how to use them, right? I mean, it's ridiculous when you talk about the amount of talent on this Texas team, right, coming back even after losing a good amount of talent last year. And I think we've known Texas the last couple of years to have elite interior guys, right? Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, Alfred Collins, right? Even Barron Sorrell moving inside. This is really, it feels like for the first time in a long time, the first elite edge rusher that Texas has had in a while, and you couldn't do much better than Simmons.
No, Colin Simmons, the top edge rusher in college football going to next year, our number 8 player in college football going to next year. At number 7 is the top quarterback in America. That is Cade Klubnik from Clemson, who, Dalton, if you told us last year that Cade Klubnik would be a top 10 player in the country going into 2025, was like, you're kind of crazy, man, because Cade Klubnik, his year before in 2023, wasn't very good. Didn't look like he lived up to the 5-star hype, but he really dramatically improved last year for Clemson.
One of the most improved players at any position in the country, arguably the most improved quarterback in the country, right? You're talking about a guy. Look, he went from struggling, obviously, in 2023, like we mentioned, 63.7 passing grade. Last year, 36 touchdowns. 6 interceptions. I mean, really, after the first game against Georgia, when, look, Clemson was really young. They had freshmen playing everywhere. They were overmatched against Georgia in the Dome in that first game. Klubnik just caught fire and never let it go. I think the only time, obviously, that Clemson didn't look great was in their loss to Louisville, but otherwise, I mean, he was just spectacular. I believe is the 89.2 PFF grade the highest of any returning quarterback? I believe it is.
I got to look it up. Yeah, it might be.
I think that's the highest of any returning quarterback in the country. And you just talk about a guy, to me, got so much better, so much more accurate, throwing vertically down the field. And you look at this trio of receivers he has now in Antonio Williams, Bryant Wesco, and TJ Moore. All 3 of those guys back this year. This is going to be a nasty offense. We've talked plenty about their defense, but this offense is also very balanced. The only question that I have is going to be who's stepping in. It looks like they're going to have some young players at running back, but Klubnik, way more accurate downfield last year, willing to take his chances. He's always been known as a guy who's going to challenge tight windows, but from the pocket and then outside the pocket, I believe he was the highest graded quarterback last year under pressure as well. So you're talking about somebody within the pocket, outside the pocket. We saw he played fantastic against Texas, against all odds in Texas, against the best secondary in the country. That's what really starts to sell you on the NFL stock. But Klubnik was fantastic last year, and his emergence is what really put Clemson, I thought, even ahead of schedule from where we thought they would would be heading into the year.
Yeah, I believe he's definitely the highest graded returning power 4 quarterback. There's a couple guys from the group of 5 level that are a little higher graded than him last year. But Cade Klubnik was incredible last year, honestly. And he's a top quarterback in America right now. And like Dalton said before, only Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders had more touchdown passes than Cade Klubnik last year. Klubnik also had the 5th most big-time throws in college football with 28 big-time throws. He was 102nd in the country in 2023 in terms of passing grade, 5th in the country this past year. He was a number 1 quarterback coming out of high school in the 2022 high school class, and he's finally living up to that hype right now. And really, we broke it down already. There's still one more Clemson player we'll get to later on, but this Clemson roster is loaded, and they have the quarterback that can lead them to the promised land and maybe win a national title with the Clemson Tigers.
I know we're not in prediction mode yet. We're going to get there probably closer to early August, but if you don't have Clemson winning the ACC, you better have a darn good reason for it. Or just hoping for luck and being right, because I don't.
Syracuse Orange, I'm probably going with this year, but
yeah. I mean, you're gonna do that every year, because that takes some sort of a certain type of person to do that. But no, I mean, this Clemson team, offense, defense, to me, everywhere except maybe
running back,
they're really young. I like their offensive line. You have it as a top 10 unit. I don't know that it's one of the elite units, but it might be a step below that, but it's good enough.
It's solid,
right?
yeah.
And they've got a lot of veterans, right?
Yeah.
They've got a lot of experience.
Blake Miller's still there, yeah.
Running back is really the only position on this team I question at all, if I'm being honest. This is a loaded team. I fully expect them to win the ACC and possibly be one of the last teams standing at the end of it all.
They're loaded quite literally everywhere, besides like running back and maybe even a little safety, like Dalton mentioned before too. But other than that, man, Clemson is just absolutely loaded. And Cade Klubnik, mentioned before, the highest graded quarterback under pressure last year. He made magic happen. He broke out of sacks, made some big time throws down the field. If you want to see Cade Klubnik and how much he improved last year, watch that playoff game against Texas. Because, yes, Clemson did lose that game. It was not on Cade Klubnik, though. And against a defense that we already broke down has so many superstars on that defense. And they had so many superstars on the defense last year that went to the NFL, like Jahdae Barron. And yet, Cade Klubnik still carved them up in that game. That shows why he could be a top 5, top 10 pick in the NFL draft and could be QB1 in the draft next year, that Texas game. And he was great all year too, but really that game against Texas, one of the best defenses in the country, on the biggest stage in the college football playoff, Cade Klubnik was absolutely fantastic in that game. Checks in here at number 7, another true sophomore here, Dolan, at number 6, and our top cornerback in the country in Leonard Moore from Notre Dame. Leonard Moore was not even supposed to really play that much last year for Notre Dame. Benjamin Morrison goes down with a season-ending injury. Leonard Moore steps in and is immediately one of the best corners in America.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's great that you flash back to that, because I can remember sitting at this desk when Benjamin Morrison, when it was announced that he needed hip surgery and his season was over, and us looking at each other going, oh,
you got a 3-star freshman playing.
If there was one guy that you couldn't lose in that defense, and it's a great defense, but if there was one guy at least we thought you couldn't lose, it was Benjamin Morrison. And Leonard Moore goes in, and it feels seamless. It's like Ben Morrison never left, and he was doing things similar to what Moore. I believe he graded out higher in his freshman year than Morrison did in his, right? And you're talking about a true freshman on a national champion runner-up that plays more man coverage than any team in the country. And yet, look at that, identical, 86.5 coverage grade, 86.5 run defense grade. He gave you both. It wasn't just coverage and one-dimensional and, wow, this kid's really good in press man or whatever. He did everything for him. He was just an immediate superstar, and all of a sudden the best corner in the country. I'm sure you've got numbers on the wins above average up there with Travis Hunter and Jahdae Barron and those guys, but without Leonard Moore, they don't get as far as they do, because Ben Morrison is not an easy player to replace. Even with the injury, he still went in the middle of the second round of the draft, and if he was healthy, he would have been a first-round pick. And Moore came in and played arguably even better than that with tough assignments week in and week out, man-to-man coverage. He was lights out, and even in the national title game, Ohio State was not going at him. 3 targets, 2 catches allowed, 14 yards against the best team in the country. They weren't going at him much, and rightfully so, and that's when Will Howard was raging hot, playing the best game of his career. Leonard Moore, you have to consider him the best corner in the country for what we saw last year. And does he have gaudy interception totals? No, he only had 2. But the idea is that a corner like this, you think about the Sauce Gardners of the world and guys like, lights out. It's just lights out. Don't even throw in his direction. It's not worth your time. That's how good Leonard Moore is already, and we've got 2 more years to watch of him as well.
I can't remember. There's not many true freshman years that I've seen a corner be this good. Derek Stingley Jr. comes to mind. His 2019 year at LSU.
Will Johnson
was great too. Ben Morrison was great in his freshman year too. But yeah, when Ben Morrison went down with that injury, and you look at the depth chart for Notre Dame, and we're kind of only going off recruiting rankings for these true freshmen. It's like, all right, you got a 3-star corner who was not even a top 40 corner coming out of high school in the recruiting rankings. We'll see how he does. And he was immediately one of the best corners in the country. He was the 3rd most valuable corner in college football last year, only behind, like Dalton said, Travis Hunter, Jahdae Barron. 2 top 20 picks in the NFL draft. Leonard Moore also 82.5 man coverage grade, 3rd among all corners in the country. A smooth athlete at 6'2", mirrors receivers at an elite level already. In single coverage, Dalton, so one-on-one, 42 targets, only 16 allowed catches. That's an elite rate right there. So you put Leonard Moore on an island against almost anyone. You mentioned that national title game. Jeremiyah Smith, besides that one deep catch down the sideline, which was not on Leonard Moore, by the way, besides that really one deep catch, Jeremiyah didn't do much in that game. Leonard Moore was on Jeremiyah a lot in that game. So Leonard Moore, I think right now, is the best corner in the country and another guy in the 2027 NFL draft that could be a top 5, top 10 pick.
I throw something at you. Here we go. He won his last 9 games of last season. 37 targets.
Okay.
15 catches. 128 yards total across 9 games with no more than 27 yards allowed in any individual game.
Dude,
it took him a couple of games. It was a Georgia Tech game where he had a few yards against him. Probably late in the games they were ahead of Georgia Tech big time. But his last 9 games, 15 catches for 128 yards total.
A sub 50% completion percentage, by the way, is stupid good for a corner. Usually it's above 50.
Just silly. I think this year, number one thing, if I'm calling plays against Notre Dame next year, we're just not throwing at Leonard Moore.
Yeah,
we're not even going to bother. Don't even find somewhere else to go because it's not going to work.
Just an unbelievable talent at corner who still has 2 more years in that Notre Dame secondary. A big reason why Notre Dame should feel really good about their chances going into next year, even after making the national title game last year. Leonard Moore returns in that secondary. He checks in at number 6. Now the top 5 of our top 50 players in college football. At number 5, the best offensive lineman in the country, Spencer Fano, the right tackle from Utah, who Dalton was a dominant run blocker in his true sophomore year.
Dominant run blocker. You want a powerful outside zone clinic. If Kyle Shanahan's watching, if Kevin O'Connell's watching, if Kevin Stefanski's watching, any of those Clint Kubiak, whoever, any of those outside zone coaches are watching, this is the tape you need to watch because as dominant a run blocker, the most dominant run blocker that we have, and you still talk about a solid pass blocker too, 79.5 pass blocking grade. I think week 1 really dragged that down. I think he had some errors week 1, but 1 sack allowed the entire season, and this Utah offensive tackle duo, him and Caleb Lomu, with Devin Dampier now as their quarterback, an extremely athletic quarterback who was one of the best rushers in the country last year. This Utah run game could get to be a lot of fun this season, but it's because of this offensive line. It's because of Spencer Fano, one of the best maulers we have in college football. There's a lot of draft hype on him right now, and rightfully so. When he gets to the NFL, he's going to be one of these dominant outside zone blocking tackles. We'll see where he ends up if he stays at right tackle, if somebody puts him on the left side, but it reminds you a lot of 2 years ago when we had Talisa Fuaga, I think, dominating at Oregon State in the same style of offense. That's what you're getting with Spencer Fano, the same guy week in and week out who wants to put people on their back.
He was the highest graded tackle in America last year with a 92.7 PFF grade, 93.6 run blocking grade. That was over 3 points higher than any other tackle in college football. He was the 2nd most valuable tackle in the Power 4. The only one who was above him was Kelvin Banks Jr., who was a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Pretty good pass blocker, too. He's a top 30 pass blocking grade in the Power 4 last year, the 79.5 mark. Now, will he play tackle in the NFL? It's probably more of a concern for his draft evaluation, but he's going to be a really good guard, even if it's kicking to guard, too. So there might be some length concerns there for Spencer Fano, but that won't be an issue until his NFL draft evaluation comes out. But Spencer Fano, in terms of how good he is as a college tackle, he is the best offensive lineman in the country right now.
All those teams that run that system, that outside zone, that Shanahan man scheme, they're going to love him. They're going to give him A+ on their draft board, whether it's tackle or guard. It could be a similar even situation. I know it's a lower pick. Fano's probably going to go hire this guy, but I think about, you mentioned the guard switch, Dominic Puni and the way that he played last year for the 49ers. I think even if he moved to guard, Fano would have a similar outcome where it's just this guy is so dominant in the trenches in that scheme. But look, I know we haven't talked a whole lot about him this summer, but are we feeling a bounce back for Utah here? I'm kind of feeling it.
I like Devin Dampier
This
a lot.
offensive line, getting Devin Dampier. I know the surface level passing numbers with him don't look great, but it was not a great team he was playing with at New Mexico, and he still found a way to succeed. He was one of the best runners at the position. I kind of like the bounce back potential for Utah. You know, Kyle Whittingham's not going to want to go 5-7 2 years in a row, and a lot of that was because of the unstable quarterback situation, the Cam Rising suspense, and then Isaac Wilson and Brandon Rose and 9 other guys that they played at quarterback last year. You get Dampier in this running game going behind this offensive line, and we know that team can always play defense. I think we might be talking about Utah as a bit of a sleeper this year, when last year, I believe they came into the season as the Big 12 favorite, did they not? If I remember that right, they were the Big 12 favorite heading into the year on the betting odds. And now they're going to be possibly a little bit lower than that, maybe significantly lower than that. But I think there's a bounce back coming there in Utah.
Well, that's a spoiler right here, Dalton. But they're actually tied for second to win the conference.
Oh, okay, they're feeling it then. They're also feeling it. They're not even. They're not even buying 5-7 left. They're like, you know what, Utah's. I mean, they've got the winning reputation, right? Whether it was in the Pac-12. The Big 12 last year, obviously they struggled last year with the quarterback situation, but we know what Kyle Whittingham can do with this program, and what they have in the trenches with Fano and this offensive line and Lomu on the other side, it's dangerous.
That's an incredible offensive line. My number 2 offensive line in the country right now, Fano, Tanoa Togia, one of the best guards in America. Caleb Lomu, a lot of people think could be a first-round pick at left tackle, too. Yeah, they're loaded on the offensive line. Utah plus 600 to win the Big 12 according to FanDuel. The only one above them was Kansas State at plus 550 right now. So Utah is seen as one of the top Big 12 contenders next year.
It is still like it was last year. It is still wide open in the Big 12.
Yes.
ASU obviously coming back as the champions. K-State's always good. Utah's always good, except last year, right? There's some other teams, TCU and Baylor. A lot of teams are looking at as dark horses. Texas Tech is a boatload of talent, but I think we can't forget about Utah in this race. It's going to be a lot of fun in the Big 12 this year again.
So I'm just looking at the betting odds for every other conference. So the betting favorite for the Big 12 is plus 550, so 5.5 to 1 odds. The next closest, or next furthest odds for the betting favorite for any other conference is James Madison, the Sun Belt, at plus 320. So that just shows how wide open the Big 12 is. That the favorite is 5.5 to 1. Every other conference is as like a 3.2 to 1 or lower.
And I love that. Did you see the Big 12? They got rid of their preseason poll, the preseason rankings.
How bad they got burned by Arizona State last
Arizona
year.
State was picked dead. I think it was the 4 teams that tied for first place at the end of the year. It was something like they were preseason ranked like 6, 11, 13, and 16 or something like that. It's just wide open, and I think, look, they're embracing that. I'm all for it. Just let it be wide open. Let the games play it out. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, we got a race all the way down to the last week, down to the wire last year in the Big 12, and then obviously Arizona State took over in the title game. But, man, oh, man, I don't know if we'll get another 4-way tie, but the Big 12 is wide open. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, Spencer Fano, that comes in here at number 5, the right tackle for Utah, the best run blocker in college football going into next year. Dalton here at number 4 is the best runner in college football going into next year. That is Jeremiyah Love, the star running back for Notre Dame. Mentioned before, Leonard Moore, who was our number 6 player in the country. Jeremiyah Love at number 4. Notre Dame made it all the way to the national title game last year because of their secondary and because of their run game. And with these 2 players here in the top 10, that same blueprint will apply to 2025.
You want a home run hitter? It's Jeremiyah Love. I mean, look, 5th in the nation in rushing grade last year. Because their running back room is so stacked with guys like Jadarian Price and Aeneas Williams, Love isn't necessarily going to get the 300, 400 carry volume that, say, an Ashton Ginty would get at Boise State or Cam Scadaboo would get at Arizona State. But Love's talent, he's the most talented back in the country. The home run speed, to me, is the first thing that sticks out. If he breaks contain, just go to the sideline. He's gone. He's just gone. We saw it in the 98-yard touchdown against Indiana. was one of the best run defenses in the country. The only thing that's a shame is that we didn't get to see him at 100%. I believe he was dealing with an ankle injury in the playoff. He tried to battle through it, but he couldn't get a whole lot of carries and make that difference for Notre Dame. We saw in Penn State the power that he can run with in that game, down on the goal line, breaking 4 tackles down there. So he can break tackles. He can take off on you. He hurdles at every opportunity. Yeah. He probably had 8 or 10 hurdles last year that are just ridiculous. He's a freakish athlete. He's an efficient runner. 6.9 yards per carry last year on the volume that he was getting. So explosive. This Notre Dame team, especially with the youth at quarterback, is going to center this offense around the run game. It's going to be Love and Price and even Aeneas Williams in the passing game a little bit, but Jeremiyah Love's a superstar. No question about it. I think you just talk about a guy, look, there's fastbacks and then there's real legitimate home run backs. Yeah. Jeremiyah Love's the home run hitter of the running back position coming back to college football this
Absolutely.
year.
He was the second most valuable running back in the country last year. As only a true sophomore, according to our wins above average metric. 91 PFF grade, was 5th among all running backs in college football. 38% forced missed tackle rate, was 2nd among all running backs in the Power 4 last year. And like Dalton said, 6.9 yards per carry. That was 3rd among all Power 4 running backs. Just a fantastic athlete. He can run through defenders like that goal line carry against Penn State. He can hurdle defenders. He can run by defenders. He is a threat to score from anywhere on the field. Even his own 2-yard line, like Dalton said in that playoff game against Indiana, he could score from anywhere. We said it before here on PFF. We don't love saying running backs go in the first round or they should go in the first round. Jeremiyah Love should be a first-round pick in next year's draft. And I feel like teams, Dalton, like the Chicago Bears, the Dallas Cowboys, didn't really address running back too much this offseason. They're probably going to watch a lot of Notre Dame tape in 2025.
And you know what you like about him, too. You know what Marcus Freeman and Mike Denbrock really like about him? Getting a combined 190 touches last year, no fumbles. Not one. So you got a home run hitter who's not going to give the ball away either. That'll do it. And look, we're going to talk a lot about the quarterback situation, whether it's C.J. Carr or Kenny Minchie or whatever's going on at quarterback. But Notre Dame's got a lot of constants on this team. You talked about Leonard Moore in the secondary, their defense. We've talked about their linebacker unit with Drake Bowen and those guys.
Really good line, yeah.
The offensive line is fantastic. Actually, I think they've got maybe the best core of receivers that they've had in a long time. Yep. Notre Dame figures out this quarterback situation, I think they're a national title contender again. But it starts with this run game and their ability to control the ground game, control the efficiency and the yardage that they're getting on the ground, not turning the ball over, and then just that's what you feel like. It feels like Notre Dame with their run game and their defense, they just choke you out, don't they?
Absolutely.
You kind of got that feel last year, especially I thought in the playoff game against Georgia, just this slow grinding submission. But it starts with Jeremiyah Love, and it's not just, 5 yards and a cloud of dust. This guy's a home run hitter, 98 yards, 70 yards, 50, however many yards you need, Jeremiyah Love can go get it. He can take off on any defense in the country.
Yep, Jeremiyah Love, our number 4 player in the country, the top running back in America going into next year. At number 3, we promise, is the final Clemson Tiger here on this list. That is defensive tackle Peter Woods, who played a little out of position at edge rusher for half the season last year and was still really good, even though he's a 300-plus pound player. Just shows the kind of freak athlete, how good he is just overall on the defensive line.
He's been freakish since he stepped foot at Clemson. I mean, even watching his true freshman tape, I'm sitting there looking at him. I'm going, he's stronger than all the seniors out here. Yeah. I don't know what he was eating, where he comes from, or what, but especially in run defense, you can't move this guy.
No.
It's ridiculous, and he's getting better as a pass rusher, 20 pressures and 3 sacks last year. We're still working on that part of it from the inside, a little more of a pass rush arsenal, but there isn't a better run defender in the country, I don't think. And you talk about Dabo Swinney having the faith in him to move him to the edge for the first half of last year because he felt like he needed some help there. Now, was he out of position? Yeah. Was it the optimal lineup for Clemson? No, I don't think so, but you talk about him being able to do that at 6'3" and 310, 315? Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous. He's just so darn strong. I think what Peter Woods is one of the highest floor players in the country. You're going to get the same guy every single week. Run game, getting better in the pass rush. I mean, can place from so many different alignments. If you really needed him off the edge, if you're feeling short there, you can put him there. But again, this Clemson defensive line, and talk about the way that Woods and Parker complement each other so well, right? Parker is the explosive, violent edge rusher, whereas Peter Woods just is the gap filler. You talk about double teams are almost a requirement for blocking him. Honestly, in the run game, you try to block him one-on-one, it's not going to happen. These two guys are such a huge reach, and Clemson is going to be so good. But Woods, I just watch him. He's just one of those guys. I watch him every week, It's the same guy every week. And it's the same guy at an elite level every single week. To have that as the base in your defensive tackle room is just ridiculous. I would bet he's a top 10 to 12 pick in next year's draft.
I would absolutely think that too. I think he's like on a Mason Graham type of trajectory. He could be a top 5 pick, honestly, in next year's draft too. I think he should be a top 5 pick as of right now in the draft. To kind of illustrate how much he was out of position. So usually in the NFL, players are obviously a lot bigger than college football players. The biggest edge rusher in the NFL last year was Michael Hecht, who played at 310 pounds. In fact, the only 2 edge rushers in the NFL who even saw a snap at 300-plus pounds was Michael Hecht and Brent Urban. Every other edge rusher in the NFL was 290 pounds or lighter. Peter Woods played at 315 last year, so 5 pounds heavier than any other edge rusher in the NFL last year, and much heavier than the average NFL edge rushers, around 260 pounds, right? So about 55 pounds more than the average edge rusher. And he was still really good. Still had an 80-plus PFF grade that year, 83.3 PFF grade. Over his first 2 years of college football, he's the highest graded D tackle, returning D tackle in the Power 4, highest graded or most valuable returning D tackle in the Power 4 too. Since 2023, he leads all returning Power 4 D tackles with an 89.7 run defense grade and a 14.9% pass rush win rate. You can make the argument he's the best run defender at D tackle in the country and the best pass rusher at D tackle in the country too. He is just power, agility at 6'3", 315 pounds. He could eat double teams. He could shoot gaps in the run game. He could rush the passer really well too. He is just a matchup nightmare for guards, centers, and even offensive tackles too.
And even this so often, right, defensive linemen are just evaluated on sack totals, right, and just the traditional stats that we've had for 40-plus years, right? And you want the value of Peter Woods. I think it's actually, you see it when he's not there. Take the Louisville game when Louisville handily beat Clemson, right? He only played 13 snaps in that game before leaving with an injury. Biggest reason Louisville won that game is because they ran for 210 yards.
Yep.
They're not running for 210 yards if Peter Woods is playing 60 snaps in that game. It's going to be a lot closer. It might be a different game. That's what you talk about when we get into these run defense grades, especially with these defensive tackles. Talked about it with a guy in Tim Keenan before for Alabama. Not a high sack total, probably never going to have a high sack total, but the impact that he brings on the inside, they make everybody else on their team better. That's exactly what Peter Woods is now at Clemson. That's what he's going to be in the NFL, and him being out there healthy and playing the proper position for an entire season makes it a brick wall on the inside.
I would love to watch a workout for Clemson's defensive line, just how many reps of whatever amount of pounds Peter Woods and TJ Parker putting up. Because I think TJ Parker is probably the strongest edge rusher in the country. Peter Woods is probably the strongest D tackle in the country.
It's really, like I said, watching just the end zone film his true freshman year.
Yeah,
I was like, he's already stronger than all these
forklifting.
He's 18 and he's stronger than all these guys. Some of them with the COVID years are 23 and 24 years old. I go, he's the strongest one.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous, and it's only getting better from there. So no, you talk about. I'm sure Dabo Swinney would even say this. Every great run defense has an anchor. Could be a middle linebacker, could be a D tackle, could be an edge player. For this team, it's Peter Woods. They're a completely different team with him on and off the field.
He and TJ Parker just put linemen on a sled, honestly, literally, just how good they are on that defensive line. Number 2 and number 1 should not be a surprise to anyone. Coming from the same school, the defending national champion. At number 2 is Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State, the best defensive player in college football going into next year. In fact, Dalton, we've been ranking position rankings at PFF for a long time now. I can't imagine, it's almost been a decade, I would imagine now. There have only been 4 players ever who have been the number 1 player at their position for multiple years in our rankings, in our offseason rankings. Trevor Lawrence, Derek Stingley Jr., Brock Bowers, and Caleb Downs. All 3 of those guys so far are top 15 picks. Caleb Downs, even though he plays safety, and we've seen time and time again, like Kyle Hamilton, like Malachi Starks, they go lower than expected. Caleb Downs should be a top 5, top 10 pick in the draft. And I would argue right now, Dawn, he is the best prospect in the 2026 NFL draft.
I agree with that. Positional value be damned. I think he's the best player right now in the 2026 class. The football IQ has jumped out at me from, and listen, this isn't a guy who had like a nice true freshman year at Bowling Green and then moved up to Ohio State or something like that. Great freshman year at Alabama under Nick Saban.
Yep.
Great sophomore year that led Ohio State to a national title this past year. And he really, when you watch what Jim Knowles did with him last year, and we'll see what Matt Patricia can do with him this year as their DC, the number of different roles, you can put him anywhere. Like, he's listed as a safety. Yes, he's a safety, but there was times when he was kind of playing their de facto middle linebacker, 8-9 yards off the line of scrimmage. They're making huge adjustments to their defense, but the key to it all is the versatility of Downs and his ability to play anywhere on the field. I think you mentioned it right when you talk about there's good safeties, and then there's safety prospects on the level of Kyle Hamilton, Derwin James, Malachi Starks was just about there, got into the first round. Eric Berry. Caleb Downs is on that level. I don't know the last time that I saw, especially at safety, a kid this young with this high of football IQ. He just always knows where to be, and he's just so darn smart that you can line him up anywhere, and he's going to make the right play. He's a fantastic tackler. He plays till the whistle. He's great in run defense. He's great in is there any – do we actually have any flaws on Caleb Downs? Honestly, okay, so maybe the one thing you go, I don't know if I'd drop him down in press man coverage, but I go, well, he's a safety. There's no safeties that are, it's just not, it's not a thing. There really is, to me, through 2 years, I haven't seen a single weakness on Caleb Downs. And we knew last year when he went to Ohio State, we were like, oh, that's okay, you're getting that kid. And look what happened. To me, the two keys on Ohio State's defense last year, front four was disgusting, right, with Sawyer and JT and Tyleik Williams, right? And then it was Caleb Downs because he just his football IQ and his ability to align anywhere and be successful allows the rest of the back seven to do whatever it is they need to do within their assignment. He's what a lot of times they call the force multiplier. He just makes everybody better around him. He's ridiculous. There's only so many. There's only with these top two guys, with both of them. There's only so many things we could say about him because Downs to me is flawless.
Yep,
he really is.
He was a first-team All-American for PFF as a true freshman at Alabama and a first-team All-American for PFF as a true sophomore at Ohio State. Over those last 2 years, he's the most valuable safety in college football, according to our wins above average metric. 91.7 PFF grade, second among all safeties over the last 2 years. 91.2 coverage grade, third among all safeties over the last 2 years. And mentioned the run defense. He leads all safeties over the last couple of years with 35 run defense stops and 88.5 run defense grades since 2023. Can thrive at free safety, slot corner, or in the box, and he's a dynamic punt returner as well. That punt return touchdown against Indiana. There's some talk about him playing a little running back. Maybe it'll actually happen this year. I haven't heard too much about it this offseason like we did last year, but he's just a dynamic player who can play everywhere. The younger brother of Josh Downs, who's turned into a really good receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. His younger brother, I would say, is a pretty far better football player than Josh Downs is.
Josh Downs is really good now.
Hold
up now. I think he had a top 15 receiving grade last year in the NFL.
I'm still
Josh
saying.
Downs, if the Colts can find a quarterback, Josh Downs, you might be talking about an elite receiver there. And I'm sure the two of them can't wait to play against each other if they get the chance also. But, man, I almost forgot about the punt return, too, against Indy. The spin move and just taking – that really – because at that time, I believe the game was 14-7. Mm-hmm. That really broke Indiana's back when he returned that punt. Look, certain guys, you get to this part of a list, we've talked about it with a handful of guys last year with Travis Hunter and Mason Graham, Ashton Gentile. Certain guys are just special.
Yep.
You just sit back and you watch them and you go, that's the grades and the numbers and all. You just watch certain football players, and they're on a different plane of existence. To me, Caleb Downs is on that plane.
Absolutely. Caleb Downs, the number 2 player in college football and the number 2 player on the Ohio State Buckeyes going into next year, because that number 1 is wide receiver Jeremiyah Smith from Ohio State. Should not be a shocker to anyone here at number 1. And Dalton, I mentioned before how Caleb Downs showed an exclusive list of the guy who's a top 10 or number 1 player at his position going into multiple years. Jeremiyah Smith now joins Trevor Lawrence as the only true sophomores in PFF history that have entered the year as the number 1 player in the PFF College 50. So he and Trevor Lawrence, who were legendary players in their freshman years, lived up to the hype despite having an immense amount of hype as the number 1 overall recruit coming out of high school. Both of them won a national title in their freshman years. Jeremiyah Smith, just unfreaking believable. He's the highest rated wide receiver to ever come out of high school, and yet he already lived up to the hype already immediately.
If he was drafted in this past draft, if he was eligible, he would have gone no lower than number 4.
Yeah.
New England would have taken him over Will Campbell and figured out the tackle situation later. He might have gone as high as number 2, honestly.
Could've.
Maybe Cleveland or Jacksonville, depending on what they would have thought of Travis Hunter. But, just You talk about living up to the hype. I mean, in 1 year, we've already got, and there's been so many great receiver prospects and so many great receivers in and out of college football the last handful of years. But you're talking about on the level of Julio Jones and A.J. Green and Calvin Johnson and guys who went in the top 5.
He made us stop talking about Marvin Harrison Jr.
It's silly.
Everyone's like, how are they going to replace Marvin Harrison Jr.? It's like, oh, that's that guy right there.
Here's number 4. Yeah. I mean, just the biggest matchup nightmare. And even Ohio State, when they were blowing a lead against Notre Dame in the national title game with their season on the line, and it's 3rd and 7, and they really haven't, and it's just chuck him one.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to get it. The one-handed catches, the body control. I think my favorite thing, actually, is that he dropped his first career target in week 1 against Akron, a screen that he probably would have housed had he caught it. Didn't drop another ball the rest of the season. His very first career target he drops, and not another one the rest of the year. I mean, one-handed catches against Michigan State, goal line fades against Iowa. I mean, just everything you could possibly. I think the only thing he actually did wrong all year was the OPI in the first first Oregon game. That's about the only thing he did wrong all year. I mean, you're talking about walking onto a college football field every week and being the biggest freak in college football as a true freshman. It's you just have to bring up those names, the Calvin Johnsons and the Julio Jones of the world, because it feels like we're in the extremely early stages of a Hall of Fame, a pro football Hall of Fame level career, and he's just got to play college. College football is just standing his way for 2 more years.
Yeah.
And now, as I think you heard him say, did you hear him say recently that, boy, his goal is to not lose to Michigan again? And I know that's been said a lot around Columbus, but if there's anybody I could believe when he says it, it's probably him.
Yeah, you got one of the highest-rated receivers of all time in Jeremiyah Smith, now one of the highest-rated quarterbacks of all time in Bryce Underwood at Michigan, too. It should be an awesome rivalry over the next couple of years. But Jeremiyah Smith, man, the most valuable receiver in the country this past year, according to our PFF wins above average metric. 89.8 receiving grade, was 3rd among all wideouts in America, more than 4 points higher than any other returning receiver in college football. Led the Power 4 with 15 receiving touchdowns, and only Tedero McMillan had more receiving yards than Jeremiyah Smith. And Tedero McMillan was really the only option on that Arizona team. Ohio State still had Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, the great running backs still like Quinshon Judkins and Trayvon Henderson. They had plenty of options, and yet Jeremiyah Smith still was 2nd in the Power 4 in receiving yards. 6'3", 215 pounds. Now, actually, I heard Dalton, he's at like 225 now. Added 10 pounds of muscle as if he needed it.
Yeah. Well, like he just needs more of it. Yeah, that's fair.
Only 19 years old with an incredibly refined skill set as well. All I've heard about his work ethic, he's the hardest worker in the building every single time out there. Jeremiyah Smith is a special generational type of football player, and it's crazy the amount of hype that he had coming into college, and he lived up to it in only 1 year in college. He's already the best player in the country, the cover athlete of EA College Football 26 alongside Ryan Williams. Jeremiyah Smith, man, just all the hype was well-deserved, and maybe not even enough hype for him coming into college to our number 1 player in college football right now.
I mean, you want a vertical threat. Actually, you want a threat at all levels.
Yeah.
Perfect 99.9 deep receiving grade, over 20 yards. One of 12 receivers to do that last year. Perfect 99.9 intermediate grade. 10 to 19 yards, one of just 4 receivers to do that, and 19th in the country with a 93.8 on short passes. And that's really reserved a lot for some of those slot guys that make things happen after the catch, right, and make people miss. 19th, top 20, under 10 yards, perfect over 10 yards at both levels. I mean, it's just you just look at him, and honestly, I every week last year, after a while, I'd just watch him, and we saw him live a couple of times. I just shrug. I just go, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's cool. I know Ohio State. They're wide receiver but this is a different level even from all of the other great ones they've had. Garrett Wilson, Smith and Jigba, Chris Olave, Harrison. Let me know if I'm missing any. Egbuka went the first, and this feels like a different level than all of them. Terry McLaurin, I can't forget about.
Yeah,
either.
true.
He's great for the Commanders, but. Yeah, just a freak of nature. He's an alien. I don't know what else to say about Jeremiyah. We're honestly just going to spend the next 2 years hoping he doesn't get hurt.
And honestly, he had a really good season before the playoff, but it seems like they really figured out, we could just win with Jeremiyah Smith in the playoff. And that playoff game against Tennessee, he had 6 catches for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns, almost all of it in the first half because they blew out Tennessee in that game. Oregon, 7 catches for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns in that Rose Bowl. Quiet game against Texas, but then 5 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown in the national title game against Notre Dame, including the game-sealing catch on that third down play, too.
I think those 4 playoff games really kind of tell you everything you need to know, because at Tennessee, against Tennessee, wasn't there just a one-on-one go ball against Jeremiyah McCoy? Touchdown, right? Oregon, there was 1 touchdown that they threw underneath basically on a screen, and he takes off 50 yards for a touchdown. Then they got him slicing through the middle of the defense through zone coverage for another one. And then I think it says everything you need to know about him. True freshman. Texas, best coverage team in the country last year. They basically, when you go back and watch that game, put every resource they had into just going, he can't have the football. He can't. Like Texas zone heavy. They had like 3 or 4 guys surrounding him every play. They made Ohio State beat them with Ibuka, with Tate, with all the other guys, and they found a way to do it. And then again, Notre Dame season on the line. What do? Just chuck it up to number 4. That's, I mean, what better play is there in college football right now than just, if he's one-on-one, what was the quote? Didn't he have a quote about,
don't play man against us.
Don't play man against us, right? Yeah. I mean, the best play in college football right now is just a go ball to Jeremiyah.
Don't play man against him, but also he had the second most receiving yards against zone coverage, only behind Travis Hunter.
It's just
so you don't play. I just don't play against Jeremiah Smith. Don't play against him.
I mean, it's funny because he's just he's so special that there's not much real. We're going to say a lot during the season, during the next 2 years, and up to the 27 draft. You just watch him. There's not much that needs to be said.
Yeah.
This is one of the freakiest college players I think we've ever seen.
And I know for guys that we've talked about for years, when they finally get around to their NFL draft evaluation, we tend to nitpick those players. You can't nitpick this guy. Don't nitpick this guy. This guy is as good as they get at wide receiver. The greatest freshman year we've ever seen for a wide receiver, and the number 1 player in college football going to next year. That wraps up the PFF College 50, the top 50 players in college football. And if anyone's getting sick of us only doing rankings on this channel, I believe we've done rankings since the draft was over, basically ranking the top 10 players at every position, ranking the top 10 position units. Now we rank the top 50 players in college football overall. Dalton, next week we get to what may be our most anticipated part of the offseason, preview time. We're previewing every single team in the Power 4 starting next week. On Monday, we're going over the SEC, giving about 10 minutes to every single team in the SEC, going over what happened last year, their biggest strength entering next year, their biggest weakness entering next year, going over their quarterback for next year, breaking down their game as Dalton watch all the tape for every single one of these quarterbacks, going over their star offensive player, their star defensive player, giving the bottom line for the team, what do we expect of the team next year, and predicting the over-under for the win total. Dalton, I cannot wait to preview all 68 Power 4 teams starting next week.
Getting to the fun part, we're starting to ramp it up here, and the season's only, about 7 weeks away? Or what do we have until that Ireland game, K-State and Iowa State? We're getting, that's August 23rd, I think it is. We're getting
a little
close.
less than 2 months,
We're getting close. We're getting close, and now we're going to preview the next 4 weeks, all 4 Power 4 conferences, plus Notre Dame. They're in that
plus
mix,
Notre Dame, of course.
So, I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun to really break it down, examine it piece by piece, and as we get into August, make these predictions for how the season's going to go. Because certainly we won't get anything wrong.
No, we never get anything wrong. No. Everything. We're never wrong, just early on everything. But next week on Monday, live here on this channel at 1 p.m., we'll be doing our SEC previews. The only episode next week, because that episode will end up being around 3 hours long, considering how many teams are in the SEC, and we're giving about 10 minutes or so to each of those SEC teams. It's going to be about 2 episodes in one. So only 1 episode next week, but it's really because that episode's going to be a beast of an episode next week. So SEC preview live next Monday here on the PFF College Football Show. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of that content coming out very, very soon. We'll see you guys on Monday with our SEC preview.